welcome to another Summer Road Trip podcast. I'm Joel, and I'm joined by David. And this week we're on the road, officially reached week 6.
Man, it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
I would love to know, Joel, what's this week's road trip question?
That is a great question. I am interested in hearing it could be funny, it could be memorable, but what is an interesting road trip story you have?
There was a time where my wife and I and 2 other couples from college, we went on a cruise together, but we ported out of New Orleans, and we were poor, relatively newlyweds, so we all hopped in a van and drove to New Orleans from Indianapolis, and we were the last couple to arrive at the launching point, so our luggage got put on the roof in this luggage bag thing. Well, we went through some pretty heavy rains, and when we got on the boat, we realized all of our clothes were soaked or ruined. So we spent the first 2 days on the boat wearing the same clothes as we had to wait. We put all of our clothes. We walked on the boat, basically said, here's our laundry. So while we waited for our laundry done, we wore the same clothes for 2 straight days. So that was an experience.
Yeah.
So we learned, like, if we're ever meeting friends on a road trip, show up first so our luggage gets in the van.
Yep. Good call. Well, you can laugh at it now.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yep. What about you?
So when I was in college, obviously you come home for breaks, you drive back, and so I made that Greentown or Kokomo to Knoxville trip so many times over the course of 4 years, where you don't need a map anymore, you know every turn. And I'll preface this by saying I've not received a speeding ticket in over 20 years, okay? But there were times where I knew how long it would take, and I'm trying to get there as fast as I can. And this one time, you'll probably know this because you drove to Cincinnati a lot. You get off 465 and you exit onto 74 to head towards Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And at that kind of 465, 74 interchange, I got pulled over and got a speeding ticket. So that was like a bummer way. I'm only an hour into the trip, and I got to live with this the rest of the way. You'd think I'd learned my lesson. The next time I made that round trip, I get pulled over, the same spot, by the same cop. And, oh man, it was just so deflating. And he made some comment like, didn't I just see you like a month ago? I was like, yeah. Didn't learn the first time, but I did learn the second time.
That's good.
But now, like, I still have PTSD. Anytime I drive past that area, I always get anxious. I'm always checking how fast I'm going. But road trips, I'll tell you, they've got a way of creating some memorable experiences. You run into people, you go to places that you wouldn't know otherwise, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. And I love the sermon this week talking about the different places that Paul went. And, Acts 17 reminds us that, those different cities were filled with completely different kinds of people on that journey that Paul was with. It's just always interesting to hear the way that Paul interacted with the different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that, what struck me, like, even regardless of the different people that Paul encountered, the gospel never changed. He changes how he starts the conversation, but to its core, the gospel was the same for Paul no matter where he visited on this journey. And that's pretty neat. He stuck to what was true and what was factual, but he changed how he started the conversation.
Yeah. If you think about it, when he went to Thessalonica, he starts with Scripture because the people there already trusted Scripture.
Yeah.
And then when he goes to Athens, these people had no faith background, they had no Bible basis, and so he starts with culture, with what they were already connected with.
Yeah, and that challenges me, and something I try to work really hard on when I'm talking to people, is that sometimes we get so focused on what we're going to say, and we don't focus on how we can actually relate to this person.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's part of the reason why I coach a lot of sports, because I know that's a great way I can relate to people and interact with people who don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's a common ground I can instantly have with people, is by coaching sports together, because there's a lot of, you talked about coaching sports before in sermons, and the fun and interesting things that happen. I've talked about it before.
Yep.
Last time I preached, the fun stories of coaching Little League baseball, and there's common ground there. And so the gospel doesn't change, but how you communicate with people and how you can connect with people first. It matters when you're trying to reach people.
Understanding your audience. I mean, that's what Paul goes into Athens, and he doesn't come in there saying, you got to do this, you got to do this.
Yeah.
He observes, he gets to know these are the people that I'm trying to reach before he starts opening his mouth. He listened before he spoke.
Yeah, and I think some people would call that compromise, and 100% it's not. That's wisdom in knowing how you connect with people. You've got to be wise in how you can do that to be able to create open doors. You have to find that common ground, and how can I reach this person? But first, it's not about just accomplishing this goal of reaching somebody for Jesus, because that's what we want. But we got to connect with people first. Like they won't, we've heard in doing youth ministry for so many years, I heard the phrase, and I may pull a Jared and butcher this, but kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's that same premise. Like, people want relationships, especially now in this digital world. People crave relationships, personal, real, face-to-face relationships more than anything. So how can we connect relationally? I mean, that's a core value of our church. Connecting relationally with somebody. And then God will open doors in those moments if we can connect with people, our neighbors, our classmates. If we can find ways to connect, God will create open doors naturally for you.
That's such a good reminder for us. So what we always try to do in these podcasts is leave you with a challenge or a question that you can talk about as a family. And this week, I want to center it around this. I want you to think about, how can we speak God's truth in a way that helps somebody hear it instead of simply trying to win an argument.
Yeah, and this is a great dinner conversation, or when you're going in the car to Walmart or whatever, asking great questions like, who are the kinds of people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis? Who is God opening up a door to have a personal relationship with? Even your own self personally, like, what helps you feel heard? When you talk to somebody, how do you know they're not just like listening to what you say, but they're actually hearing you for what you're saying? But not only that, but also talk through, a great question is, how did Jesus really listen to people in Scripture? How did he really hear their story? How did he connect with people? And what can we learn from those moments as well?
I love that too, because that gives families an opportunity even to go to the Bible and open it up in a way where we're searching the Scriptures together. And I don't have the exact numbers, but it's interesting that when Jesus was asked questions in the Scripture, he almost always responds with questions himself. Like, Jesus was a master at asking good questions and understanding his audience. We talked about it briefly on Sunday, but he to fishermen, he talked to them about fishing, and to the Samaritan woman at a well, he talked about the well. When he was with the religious leaders, he talked about law and Scripture. Like, he was just great at observing and asking questions. And I think we would do well to do that too, to really understand, who are we trying to reach, and are we trying to just win an argument, or do we really want to understand who they are and where they're at and what they value, what's going to connect with them? And so, can you think of a time in your own life where either you've done that well or done that poorly?
Unfortunately, I can. And I think I go back to coaching. There was an instance this year, I was talking to a coach, and I really try to be a calm presence, and remember, it's just Little League baseball, and I try to be a positive and reflect Jesus in everything I do. And I was having a conversation with a coach. He was frustrated with some of the umpiring, officiating, which you've probably been to a game, you've never seen that somebody upset at an umpire.
Never.
And so I was like, hey, we just got to remember, it's 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. Nothing is worth getting upset about. And he just looked at me and said, well, that's not what you did last year in the playoffs. And I remembered exactly what he was talking about. I got frustrated. We lost a game we shouldn't. And I did get a little upset. It was just a reminder to me, a painful reminder. Everyone is watching everything we do, and we reflect Jesus whether we do it poorly or well. And me just getting frustrated on a baseball field, somebody remembered literally 12 months later. And so, just a reminder to me, everything I do matters to the kingdom, both positively and negatively. And so, how can I make sure to check myself that I'm honoring God in coaching, and how I'm talking to my players? Everything matters. And so, honestly, it challenged me to be a better follower of Jesus. And just a reminder that people remember what I do a year later when I don't reflect Christ well. What about you? Do you have anything you can remember?
Yeah, years ago, I was teaching an apologetics class, teaching people how to defend their faith. I spent a lot of time with college students who were being bombarded by secular professors who would mock Christianity, and so just kind of teaching people about that. And there was a college student who came and attended, and he wasn't a believer, but his mom encouraged him to come. And I just remember, like, he would ask these. He would try to ask these like gotcha type questions, and I just remember being so fixated, like, I just want to show you that this is true. And I was more focused on winning him over with an argument than like seeing him as a person, because underneath that like hard exterior, like there were deep hurts and needs, and I don't think I stewarded that well. But I'd like to say I learned from that, because there was a time later after that where there was a father of a college student, and the college student was involved in our ministry. The dad was not a believer, but he had got a pretty bad cancer diagnosis, and that totally changed the way I went into that conversation. I was able to ask more questions instead of beat him over the head with this is what truth is. And once I saw what kind of his core fears were, we were able to show how the gospel speaks into that, and to see this guy with this tough exterior break down in tears and understand, like, it doesn't matter what you've done in your life, there's a God who still loves you and cares about you. Like, it just showed me, like, meet people where they're at, understand their context. Like, the gospel speaks to every situation.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder, and Paul was a good reminder for me too, that we don't have to choose between conviction and compassion. Like, it's not an either or, it's a both. We have to be convicted in what we believe, but also have compassion towards the people that we're interacting with, no matter how good or bad decisions they make. Stand up for what you believe in, but also have compassion for every person you meet.
We can have both. We can have conviction and we can have compassion. The truth doesn't change, but our approach will, depending on the situation, depending on the purpose. Remember that the gospel doesn't need a friendly audience, it just needs a faithful messenger. And that's our prayer, is that we would be that faithful messenger. Well, David, I think that's going to wrap up today's conversation. We'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday as we continue our road trip series, and we'll be back next week with our next venture in our summer road trip podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Have a good week.
We'll see you next time.